Hello, everyone. Welcome back to yet another episode of Thought-Provoking Conversations. This is week 3. This is our 3rd episode now. We're kind of pumping these out. This week, again, it's kind of a little bit different. This is going to be a 2-part series. We'll be focusing on two questions that we thought went pretty hand in hand. But we didn't want to keep making videos that are super long and hard to kind of get through. So we want to kind of shorten it up and split it up in 2 parts. The 2 overall questions that we'll be discussing are what's holding you back? And then the question that we'll be answering in part 2 will be, how do you embrace being you? We thought in order to be able to embrace who you are, you have to figure out what's holding you back from doing that. So that's why we're exploring those 2 topics and thought they went pretty well hand in hand. Like I said, today we'll be focusing on that first question on what's holding you back. This is a very broad question. It could be anything. And I'm excited to kind of get through this. Like I was telling Aid before we got going, I thought through a lot of different things and kept coming back to the same conclusion. So, I don't have as much written down as I have before, but I think I had to face a couple things. Aid, before we get going, any insight that you want to provide?
No, I think you introduced this pretty well. Very excited to have this conversation, and we'll see where it takes us.
For sure. Happy belated birthday, by the way. For those of you that know, his birthday just passed.
Yay.
On Sunday. He's becoming an old man.
Yeah, dude. You over here still being a young whippersnapper, dude.
Yeah, dude. Can't keep up anymore. All right. So what's holding me back? Right. So how I approached this question was I looked at different aspects of my life first. Right. I kind of try to see, so what's holding me back, like in my academics? What's holding me back in my personal relationships? What's holding me back at work? Because I wanted to see if the same theme kind of came across in these different areas or if it was different things per area. So I had it basically to see whether I was going to have to try to restructure multiple problems, or was it just one, like a couple things that were consistent there. And at first when I was kind of looking at it, it seemed to be different themes. Like I was like it seems like depending on what environment I'm in, I let different things bother me or make me feel not up to the task, I guess, which is what made me start feeling like I was holding myself back in a way. But I guess without going around the bush too much, it came back after exploring those kind of concepts. I came back to the same conclusion of what's holding me back is my inability to have a deep sense of self-love. I was just masking that in various different forms, whether it was to being lazy for my academics, being shy and quiet when it came to friendships and personal relationships, to not speaking up enough, whether that's at work or in various like public settings like that. On the surface, it seemed like it could be a couple different sources of that, but if I'm being honest with myself, it's just that inability of having self-love, like a deep sense of self-love. Like I have a sense of appreciation for who I am and what I'm about, but I don't allow myself to really believe and love myself, which obviously is an issue. Um, but I needed to sum it up in that way, because well, it made the most sense in my head, but also because it was just that simple. Like it's always been in the back of my mind, and I knew it, but I just try to kind of bottle it down and not really give it an identity. But and to me, like in order for me to face that, I need to give it an identity, and that's as simple as it is. Just not having a deep sense of self love. Always not feeling um, capable enough or like I matter enough, I guess, and not in a sense of like I feel empty, but in more of a sense like just not enough. Like there's something there, but just not enough. It's like you're like 2/5. Like yeah, it's a little there's something there, but haven't really discovered the best way to kind of approach that and allowing myself to do that. And I'm not sure I haven't been able to yet figure out kind of why that is. Why I always kind of revert back to like whenever I'm being successful or I'm doing well in something, I'll always do a really good job of undercutting my legs, basically.
Yeah.
So just you know, and I don't know if it's just my self mechanism of not letting myself get too high in any moment. Um, but I don't know, and like I feel like I approach a lot of things in a confident manner, but I also know that I don't. Like I feel like I'm very good at seeming confident and even tricking myself into thinking I'm confident, but my body deep down knows that I'm not in various areas. And I can always tell because, my hands get sweaty, my mouth gets dry, my heart starts beating. But yeah, I still try to trick my brain to saying like, no, you're good. And I don't know. It's an interesting dilemma that I've, still exploring. But I mean, like I said, that was the best way for me to sum it up. It's just like my inability to have a deep sense of self love.
So where do you take it from here then?
I think the first step is doing a better job of recognizing when it's happening and try to figure out what exactly is triggering that response within me, right? Like what about this is making me feel like I don't deserve this or I shouldn't be doing well or stuff like that. So I think that's the first step, and then after that is just seeing whether it's accurate in that situation. It's like, yeah, maybe my body's right, or it's like, no, it's just a bad reflex, and this is how you should actually view this. I don't know. A lot of it will become from just writing things down and just kind of visualizing the whole thing a little bit more. But yeah, there's still a lot of questions around that whole thing, but that's kind of where I'm at.
Interesting, dude. Damn, bro. Dude, I mean, that statement was basically where I was getting towards too, in my pursuit of figuring out what the hell is holding me back. And it was interesting how it kind of got to this point. Because I've been thinking about it a lot, man. Since we had our last conversation and we decided that this was going to be our topic.
Yeah.
And so I was asking myself this question. It's like, what's holding me back? What's holding me back? What's holding me back? Right. And last night I was having a conversation with Shadid, and I was talking about a lot of this, right? And it was like, I was trying to go back to kind of like the root of it for me. And it was intriguing, because I still remember one of the only things my parents really ever acknowledged me for was getting good grades in school. And for me, it wasn't very difficult to get decent grades in school. And so when I learned that I could, be, a piece of crap and still do decently well, and then I got congratulated for it. And that was like my only parents' acknowledgement of like, you did a good job. Never ever told me like, hey, I'm proud of you. I think the first time my mom told me she was proud of me was when I was in college, I'm pretty sure. So that I was like 19, 20, somewhere around there. And I remember it was weird because like that was the first time I'd heard those words come out of her mouth. And I was like, what the fuck is this? I was like, I didn't even know how to take it, And for me, that was interesting. And so I was discussing all of this with Shadid last night. And, one of the things that got me was I started getting really emotional, and I was like, well, I need to write out, all these things. And so I created this list of good and bad, right? It's kind of like a pro and cons list, but it was like all the bad things that I had done that weighed on my conscience from my perspective, nobody else, like there was no criteria like, oh, I got to do this amount of damage, blah, blah, blah. Like it was just what in my, moral compass, like what felt wrong when I did it, There's a long fucking list, man. and then I went and I tried to write a list of all the good things that I've done, right? And that was a short fucking list. And so I compared the two, and those two told me volumes of what I thought about myself, and one of those being like I don't have that love for myself, like and that's something that I recognize too, like it's been in my mind, and much like yourself, I always find a way to like, karate chop my legs out from underneath me and see what happens, because like I don't know if it's I don't want my ego to get too big, or if it's I want to knock myself out of the fight before anybody else knocks me out of the fight, because I feel like it's easier to handle that. Because then you can leave with that idea of like, oh, I could have been great, but I stepped out of the ring, It was my choice, you know what I mean? And I don't know. I don't think that's better, in my opinion. And after writing like that list of errors in my life, one, it made me feel a lot lighter. Like it made me feel like I was, some of those things that had kind of been following me for a while, I was finally able to put down on paper. And and one, I felt lighter and I felt more at peace afterwards, which was really nice. But it did leave me kind of emotionally distraught. But it was really interesting because, like, I don't know, man. I think, but I think you kind of were really succinct about it. I don't come from a place of deep self-love, because if I did, there's like a million things in my life that I would not have done if I had truly, loved myself and did what was right for me in that moment. You know what I mean? There's a lot of moments where I wouldn't have picked up the bottle. There's a lot of moments where I wouldn't have talked to that person. There's a lot of moments where I wouldn't have tried to do those things. And it just makes me curious. Is like the reason I did it was because I didn't love myself. I wasn't in a happy state, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. Like I was listening to this podcast from Tony Robbins and Tim Ferriss, and it was really good. And one of the questions that Tony Robbins really likes to ask is, who did you crave love from the most? Your father or your mother? And so I was thinking about that, right? And it was weird because like in my experience, my dad was never home, and it felt like kind of like my mom always did everything, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But my mom babied me pretty significantly. You know, she did everything for me. She made me food. She would clean up my room. She would clean up all my toys that I destroyed all the time, and I made huge messes around the house. I had those Mega Blocks, you know,
Oh
before
yeah.
Legos came out, and I had a lot of them. And I would just take them and I just dump out the buckets, and I just create some stuff, and then I take my creation and I leave the rest of it there. And then she just pick it up after me, you know. And that's just a terrible thing to do for a child, because you kind of take away that responsibility, you know. You kind of teach them that, oh, you know, you're okay, it's
Yeah.
fine, you know, do whatever you want.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And then all of a sudden, you know, I make it to a certain age and my mom's like, all right, start picking up after yourself. And I'm like, what? Why? I don't want to.
Do you not love me?
Right. Yeah. I was like, I know. You never made me pick it up before. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so um, it was interesting. And so I think in a way, but my dad was never really present, right? Because he was working those, you know, 8, 10, 12-hour shifts, sometimes gone for weeks at a time.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he'd come home, right? He'd eat dinner with us. He'd go to sleep. On the weekends, like he'd be around a little bit to kind of like, you know, just to go get groceries and do all the things that, you know, a man of the house should do, right? He needed to teach me how to work, how to do all those things, as is customary in our tradition.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but it'd be difficult to say that I guess I got maybe what I needed from him, you know?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I always felt like there was such a separation between who I was as a kid and who they were as adults, right?
Mm-hmm.
They just kind of viewed me as like this little kid who's off in his own little world. And I mean, I don't know, man. I felt like I was trying to make sense of a lot of things that maybe a kid at that age shouldn't have been trying to make sense of, you know? And it, it, it makes me wonder, you know, where maybe they should have, you know, came in and answered some questions, because at the same time, um, I viewed my dad as like an authority figure, you know. I hated asking him for things. I'd always ask my mom,
Mm-hmm.
and my mom would be like the gateway, like the gatekeeper to my father, because like I felt like my dad was such an authoritarian type of figure that
Mm-hmm.
um, I couldn't ask questions, you know. I couldn't be that curious kid that I usually was, because my parents were so quick to be like, cállate, cabrón. I mean, like, shut up. You don't know what you're talking about, right? When I got to a really good question, and in my way, that also made me very quiet. You know, it kind of made me recede into my mind, because my mind was the only safe place where I could be me. You know,
Mm-hmm.
but I thought that was, I mean, regardless, interesting experience. And so, but yeah, I digress, man. I think you're absolutely right, dude. I think there's like, where do we take it from here? You know, like what we kind of came to very similar conclusions.
As
But I'm
usual.
but I'm curious to hear, like, maybe a little bit more about yours, you know, like what, if you take that back far enough, where do you think it takes you, you know?
Mm-hmm.
If you had to guess, like, has your whole life been like this? I doubt it. You know, as a kid, maybe there's a chance that you weren't like this. I don't
Mm-hmm.
know if you can remember something like that. I don't know if there's like an incident that comes to mind.
Not an incident per se, but as you were talking, it kind of made me think, like, like especially when you were saying coddled. I think I never learned how to love myself because I had enough people around me that loved me. So I,
You also have to define love really quick
mm-hmm,
because my mom says she loves me, but you know, I can go back through my childhood and I'm like, this was the love that she thought she was giving me, right? This was the love that she knows. But is this the type of love because sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you, man, but I I just want to interject this part because
mm-hmm,
you know my mom says she loves me, right? And you know, in a way I believe her because she's given me the type of love that she knows how to give, right?
mm-hmm,
But that love also meant that she did everything for me. And then that love also meant that she didn't give me the responsibility and the ability to take charge of my life and make it into the structure that I want to make it into, you know?
mm-hmm,
And in a way, her love was blind to the fact of what it should actually be. And I hate to say that as like a way, like, you know, there's an appropriate way to love somebody, but I feel like the more that I learn about what it means to actually raise a child, right? The curiosity that they have and the ways you approach their curiosity and their tenacity and their ability to be aggressive and their ability to be all these things, right? And it's
mm-hmm.
not something that an iron fist and a whip can fix, you know, or you know, like my parents would think of me as like a good kid, right? But I was just really sneaky at doing shit behind their back.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And so I just wanted to interject that because I'd like to see what your family and your parents' love towards you was, you know, because for
Mm-hmm.
me that's the way it was.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, in some ways it was similar, but my parents never discouraged my curiosity. They always kind of helped me walk through things. Um, my dad's a big history guy, so we've always talked about that kind of stuff. And whenever something like that would interest me, he would always sit down and talk to me about it. Like they were never, as far as I can remember, they never put me down once. Like say, no, I don't want to talk about that, or like, no, you shouldn't talk about that. Like never, not once regarding the topic. And I had like like the sex talk and that those type of topics since I was like 4. Like my parents, especially my mom, has always been super open and wanted to be as straightforward as she could because she wanted us to like I don't know, just be conscious of things and be smart about things. And and like yeah, they would say I'm a good kid, and I wouldn't say I was sneaky. Like I never drank until I got to college. Like, and my parents never drank in front of me as long as I can remember. And like they haven't drank at all since like I don't know, since I was 2 maybe. And there's two ways to kind of approach that for people. You see your parents not do it, so you want to do it because they don't do it, or you go the route that I did, and I was like, oh well, they don't do it. It's like I don't really care for it then. And
Did they discourage you from doing it?
no, like I wouldn't say they were like, hey, don't do this. Like I said, it was always more of an educational thing.
Yeah,
But
maybe it was there.
I never put myself in situations where that would even come up. Really, like I would say, the
That's what
people that I hung around and the people that I called my friends, we never even put ourselves in those kind of situations. Like even through senior year of high school, most of the time when I hung out with my friends, it'd be we're watching football, playing ping pong, like playing basketball, like playing wiffle ball or something like that. Like it never came to a point where it's like, hey, we should drink or we should do this or we should do that. So that was easy for me to not do because like I said, I never put myself in those situations. And I don't know if part of it just because like my family history, like with cousins and aunts and uncles, and that has always been like a problem. And I never wanted to be like them, so it made me like not stay away from it, but just not put myself in those situations because I was like my parents taught me better than that.
Damn. Because I mean, I think you're right. You know, when I was a little kid, my dad stopped drinking because I think he got like a DUI. I think when he like right before I was born,
Mm-hmm.
and that fucked him up. And after that, he stopped drinking because he was like, I'm about to have a kid. You know, that I was his first kid, and he took it seriously after that. And he stopped drinking until I was like 15 or 16. And I get it, like work got really shitty. I understand, but my mom, I mean, she'd only drink around the holidays, anyways. But I was a lot like that, at least at first. And I was like, oh, I'm never gonna touch alcohol. You know, I'm never gonna smoke weeds. I was just like, dude, no, fuck that, man. Like I had alcoholics on both sides of my family, cousins, my older brother, uncles. Like it's a lot of people, man, a lot of people. And I didn't want to be like them. You know, I was much like you, at least at first. And then when I was in school, I never felt that I found like a good identity where I belonged. You know, there was always something about me that just felt different, right? And I would always hang out with the kids that were weird. Like I remember having my first best friend when I was in 4th grade, and his name was Gabriel. And dude, the dude was fucking crazy, man. And the reason why I liked him was because he said all the things that were in my mind, right? Like I would think about crazy shit, man. But you see, the thing about me is my parents always taught me to keep your mouth shut. You know, don't say things out loud that could offend somebody. This kid had no filter whatsoever, man. So he just go and he'd say it, and so everybody hated him, and they'd be like, "Dude, why do you hang out with him, man?" And I was like, "Dude, I think he's fucking awesome." and so I would hang out with those kids, and then eventually I began to understand that you kind of want to start to fit in everywhere, But in doing so, I kind of, I don't want to say, yeah, I guess you could say I kind of lost my identity. I kind of lost who I viewed myself as. And it made it easier for me to begin to fit in with all these different groups of people, right? I was in with the smart kids, right? Because I was, apparently good at math. So I had a place over there, right? And then I also started doing sports. So I slowly started to interject myself in with the jocks, right? With the sport kids, with the athletes. But then there was also this group of kids that were like gamers, nerds, kind of good at math, but not all the time. So they weren't always with the smart kids. And it was just this whole mumbo jumbo, and I fit in with them too. And so I moved around a lot. And then as as like we moved into high school, it kind of became more stratified, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I had to change a lot more to be fitting into what I was. And eventually, I started taking parts out of my life that I was like, okay, I'm done trying to be that person. That's why I walked away from choir, because I was like, I don't really want to do that anymore, man. Plus, the teacher was also kind of mean, and nobody else had the balls to like stand up to her. So I was like, well, I'm not going to put up with this. So I was the one that quit. I was like, Jesus, I appreciate it. You were nice to me, but you weren't nice to other people, and I don't like how you treat them, even if they won't say anything. So I don't know, man. I don't know. Like, I always saw like the dudes who went out for sports were always kind of like mean to like the girls, the women, you know what I mean? And they just loved it, man. It was so bizarre, dude. I remember seeing that. I was like, dude, what?
That makes
He
no
just he
sense.
just yeah, he just called you gay, and you laughed and you blushed. Like, what the fuck? I was like, this is an interesting dynamic, man.
That's a
I
whole
was
different conversation.
Yeah, I was like, wow, dude, this is some crazy stuff, man. I don't even know how to make sense of this. And so I would just kind of keep quiet. And
Mm-hmm.
if they asked me for help on their homework, I'd help them. If they did this and that, I'd be like, okay, here you go.
Mm-hmm.
But I never tried to be mean. Um, but I kind of bounced around from place to place, and eventually you do that enough, and you become to make it to a place where you're like, I'm kind of curious, I'm kind of curious of what all this stuff is, because you
Mm-hmm.
hear a lot of stories about like, oh, I went to this party, I did this, I got so fucked up, I blah, blah, blah. And I was like, I'm intrigued. My curiosity has peaked. And, that also coincided with me wanting to rebel against my parents, because my parents, unlike yours, man, they told me what to do. They were like, don't do this. Don't have sex before you're married, because you're going to go to hell, right? Don't drink alcohol, because then you're going to become an alcoholic like your uncles. Don't do all these things, because then you're going to have to. Don't ever have a kid, because if you have a kid, that means you're going to have to work for the rest of your life like me. And my dad would say that to me, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, there was a lot of other things that my parents would say that got a little bit closer and closer to the point where I was like, my own moral compass was like, no, this is bullshit, dude. There's no way this can be true. Like, why would this be true, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so it made me very confused. It made me very confused, because there was like this way that I believe people should be, because my parents told me. But at the same time, there was a part of me inside that didn't feel like this was right.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't know, man. I mean, that was part of it for me. And it's interesting how different we kind of grew up,
Came up, yeah.
but in a way we've reached the same conclusion, which is intriguing to me. That is very intriguing. So I'm curious, like, where else along the line, like, this kind of came in. When did it start coming into you? Like, when did you start realizing that, like, oh, I'm not doing what is actually beneficial for me in this moment? Like, did you ever have that feeling?
Um, Definitely not till I got to college. Um,
What?
yeah, I
Not
mean,
even. Never
like,
mind. Yeah, keep going.
um, I would say there were spurts definitely where I hit some pretty low points, and I've talked to you about those before. Um,
Hmm.
but the really like me exploring that concept definitely not till college. Like I said like earlier, when I was starting to explain how I never learned how to love myself because I had enough people around me that loved me. I meant that in a sense that I grew up, I was fortunate enough to grow up where I had great role models. I had a great support system, and I had a great amount of people telling me I could do whatever, like I could do anything. So I never really had to build a sense of self-love because I was receiving it from so many places that it falsified my own sense. And there wasn't enough of a need for it until I was removed from those support systems and we've talked we lived through a lot of those low points in college together, and that's when I really learned that I hadn't developed that skill well enough to where I needed it to be at the time. And it's just, and it feels weird saying that, like saying I had too many people supporting me because, why is that ever a bad thing? But, um, and I don't think it is, but I like all through high school, all through my, normal grade school, it always felt like I was doing things to make sure I proved those people right. Right? There was never people that were telling me, "Oh, you're not going to accomplish that. Like, you're not going to get there." So, that was never my motivation. Like, it was never an anger or like I'm going to prove you wrong type of motivation. It was always a positive, like, yeah, I want to prove those people right that were encouraging me. So, I don't know. Like, it's kind of hard to conceptualize that. Um, but I couldn't appreciate my own like accomplishments because there was always someone there to appreciate them for me. So I never learned how to appreciate them myself. I think that's kind of what I'm getting at.
Pretty real, dude. I can see that. I can see that, because there are a lot of teachers that told me I was smart.
Mm-hmm.
That was one of the things I got told all the time. Right? Like, oh, you're so smart. All my classmates. And it was funny because they had a higher GPA than I did. They'd be like, bro, you're so smart. Like, how are you so smart? And I'd be like, what? Did you not see me doing my homework like 20 minutes ago, like in the morning, the day it was due, Like I would argue that mine that they kind of supported my intelligence, and in a way I started believing it too,
Mm-hmm.
I was like, oh yeah, I'm smart, like I'm gonna be able to do this. I'm gonna be able to go to college. I'm gonna be able to do all these things, right? And um and it was interesting, because once you face real adversity, right? Once you make it to college and discover that, dude, you're average.
At best.
Yeah, at best. You're like, shit. What am I doing?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And that's such a wake up call. You know what I mean? It's such a wake up call. I remember having conversations with oh man, why am I totally blanking on his name? With Jeff.
Oh yeah, Jeff.
Yeah,
Thank
El
you.
Jefe. I remember having a conversation with him, and he was telling me, he's like, dude, I've worked with a lot of students like you that were smart in high school and then came to college and discovered that it's not that easy. It's not easy at all, right? Because we were isolated. We were in this own little like test tube, free of adversity, right?
A little pond, not out to the
Yeah.
lake or the ocean yet.
Yeah. You discover there's big fish.
Mm-hmm.
There's big fish out there, man. And you're just a little tadpole, man. Just a little tadpole. But yeah, dude, I think I definitely see where you're coming from, and I think I definitely have elements of that in my own story, because it's very interesting, because I remember there's this one part that really sticks out to me, and so I'm gonna tell it to you because I don't know, maybe we can find something in there that might make this all mean something more.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I remember.
Yeah.
Well, now I'm thinking about this. Should I really share this story?
You don't have
Um,
to. We can do it off air.
we might have to do it off air, but it was interesting. Did you ever have any friends that committed let's say they committed an error, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like they fucked up. You know what I mean?
Like how bad we talking?
Like, maybe like let's say, so I'll say it without the names attached to it. So I had a friend of mine who was a girl, and she was awesome, right? And we hung out like for a whole summer, and this was at a time when I had a girlfriend, and so she was really cool, and I
Mm-hmm.
really enjoyed hanging out with her and stuff, and really close friend. And then I had another friend that was a dude, right? He was one of my best friends at the time, and we would hang out together too, right? So I would have these things. I would have like campfires at my place. We'd have like s'mores, like water balloon fights, uh, like truck surfing and the dirt roads, which I don't encourage at all. Please don't do it. Stay safe. Wear a seatbelt when you drive. But we there was some questionable activities happening at my place, right?
Yeah.
And so eventually, like as one friend to a single person to another friend of a single person, you kind of try to play
Cupid.
yeah, play Cupid. I guess I was trying to think of, for some reason, Dr. Phil came to mind, and I don't know why Dr. Phil came to mind, but I don't think Dr. Phil works like that. But anyways, yeah, matchmaker, right?
Yeah.
I wanted to be Match.com, dude, and I wanted to get them to hook up together, right? So eventually, start dating,
Mm-hmm.
and I think he eventually cheated on her, right? I think
Mm-hmm.
if I remember where this story goes, and after that, dude, it was like as if I imposed all this judgment on him, and I
Mm-hmm.
treated him as like somebody who was way above something like this, and
Mm-hmm.
it was almost like I couldn't forgive him for doing this, right? Which, as I look back on it now, I was like, who the hell am I, dude? Like, especially
Yeah.
with my track history, like I have no
Yeah.
excuse to talk about any of this and to have
Yeah.
given him shit,
Mm-hmm.
and I gave him a lot of shit, right? Like it was significant,
Mm-hmm.
like it was bad. Like I'm talking about like his mom still probably hates me. You
I
know
feel
what I
like you've
mean?
told me
Like,
that story before, or at least it sounds familiar, but I could tell you any details. So,
there's multiple moms that hate me now, but
well,
there's
fair enough.
multiple moms that hate me. So yeah, I have a lot
Take your
of
pick on them.
those stories. But I digress, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
I digress, right? Nothing against him now, man, and nothing against his mom either. But at the time when I was a kid, man, it just felt like, how dare he? How dare
Mm-hmm.
he for doing something like this? And as I look back on it now, right? Retrospection is 2020. It makes me really curious because I wasn't a saint back then either,
Mm-hmm.
right? I had my own encounters with the wicked, even myself,
Yeah.
and it makes me wonder why I was so quick to jump on somebody for making a mistake that I made, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But anyways, yeah, that's all I was gonna say. There's probably more to it, but that's all I'm gonna say for right now.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like when a friend or someone close to us makes a mistake, right? If we allow them to be our friend in our mind or someone close to us, then we tend to typically put them in a higher pedestal than maybe they deserve. Um,
Yeah.
and when they prove that they're still human, it kind of shocks us in a way,
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely.
and it can be hard to kind of deal with that. Um,
Oh yeah, I agree.
and I know where you're coming from. Um, you know, plenty of people that I've known that made mistakes, and I'm just like, how? Like, how could you do that? But I mean, we're all human. We all have temptations. We
Yeah.
all have things that we fall to. And I don't
Yeah.
know if
And
it's because if you have done yourself have made that mistake, or you're afraid of making that mistake, that makes you feel like I need to repel this as far away from me as I can, because I don't want to either do this again or ever fall into that trap that maybe deep down you feel like I could do that too. So I need to keep that away from me. Um,
yeah.
so I don't know.
Yeah. There's like that that concept where the reason like another person bothers you is because they pull out the part of you that you don't like, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Like, have you ever thought about that before? It's like,
Yep.
if you really got down to why somebody kind of pisses you off,
Mm-hmm.
um, it kind of takes you to a point where you're like, damn, you know,
Mm-hmm.
I hate that part about myself,
Yeah.
right? So for me, I always hated people who were really full of themselves, you know,
Mm-hmm.
who were full of shit. And it was funny because I was capable of that, and I did it, and I became that person, and I hated who I was when I did it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so it's interesting, yeah. And I think you're absolutely right. It's like you recognize the evil that you're capable of doing,
Mm-hmm.
and you want to like get rid of it. You want to repel it. You want to throw it away, and you want to do whatever you can to get away from that and not associate yourself with that.
Mm-hmm.
But by doing that and by not recognizing it, you almost give it power over you too.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you make it capable of doing that sneak attack from behind and put you in a like
choke hold out of
yeah,
nowhere.
put you in a chokehold, and
Yeah.
then before you know it, dude, you did things that are 5 times as worse, and you're like, yikes, dude, who was I? You know, who was I to
Mm-hmm.
say anything about this?
Yeah.
And yeah, dude, absolutely. But I feel like I'm getting us a little off topic.
Yeah.
How does it? So how would this relate back? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because did you ever meet anybody who was truly able to be satisfied with what they were doing and always stayed on their game 100% of the time?
I feel like yes. At least I would say these are like my mentors. Those are the type of people would I meet anybody my own age that's been like that? I don't know, but I've definitely have like mentors who I know like they'll even say it like they're not perfect or anything, but when I interacted with them or whenever I saw them, I could see the amount of effort and intention they were doing, everything that they were doing, basically.
Dude, I'm trying to think back to high school, man, and it's just I just don't think I had any mentors when I was in high school.
Mm-hmm.
Like all my teachers loved me,
Mm-hmm.
right? Or at least they really enjoyed my presence at the very least. Like
Mm-hmm.
they would laugh at my jokes. I got good grades in their class, and I joke around.
Mm-hmm.
I try to make them smile. I try to sometimes participate. Sometimes I take it a little too far, but you know who doesn't?
Mm-hmm.
But to look back and look at them as like, so I guess in a way I can only compare this to like Moy, you know, for example.
Mm-hmm.
I can view him as my mentor because I was always willing and excited and wanting to go in and talk to him and tell
Mm-hmm.
him about my life and tell him like what's going on, and he'd give me actionable feedback that I can work on and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I never felt like I could do that with anybody when I was in high school, you know what I mean? Like,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe that was my fault because maybe I didn't reach out, you know,
Mm-hmm.
because I did have this idea that, you know, everybody was kind of judging me. Like I've talked about this before already in one of these videos, right?
Yeah.
I had this idea that people were always looking out for me making mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
And so whenever I make a mistake, I would amplify it like 10,000 times because I felt like everybody was watching and waiting for that, you know? So,
Yeah.
so maybe it was a part of that, you know what I mean? And maybe somehow Moy was just able to relate to me. And I don't know, you know,
Yeah.
it's something I think about a lot because it intrigues me, you know, at the very least.
And like to kind of piggyback off of that, and like I always say this, I was so fortunate to have as many influential mentors along the way throughout my life so far. Um, I wouldn't. I mean, elementary school, I wouldn't say you would really even know what a mentor is at that point, really. But
Yeah.
definitely in middle school and high school, I had various um, people. In middle school, I had my my eighth grade football coach, who was also the head track coach. Um, he's someone that I still talk to this day. That still checks up on me. That I'm excited to talk to and fill him in on what's going on and hear what he has planned and stuff like that. Because I was able to build a bond with him because he kept me accountable. Because like you said, like all throughout school, like teachers always liked me. I got good grades. Like I never got a bad word, like anything bad said about me. Um,
Hmm.
but he kept things honest. He kept things constructive. Uh, but he held me to a standard, and he made sure that I stayed at that because he saw the potential in me that I didn't see in myself, or that
Yeah.
I hadn't contemplated enough at the time. So he did a really good job of encouraging me, um, and guiding me through a like stern and constructive way, I guess.
Hmm.
And then in
Yeah.
high school, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there.
No, I did. And keep going, man. Keep going.
In high school, I would say my my head football coach, my strength and conditioning coach, and then my choir teacher are three men that taught me how to be a man. Like I would say, besides my dad, they were the three most influential men in my life. One is because I spent so much time in those areas, doing football, doing strength and conditioning all year long. And then I was also in choir and show choir. Then that was a year long thing. And they all showed me different things. Like my football coach and my strength coach, you know, they were both big military guys, and they ran things like a military program where we had core values, and before we sign off on our weight things, we had to recite the definition of the core value. Um, there was always themes and principles that we had to try to live by, and I always stuck to that, and I always felt that because they're just that good of leaders that they make you believe and make you want to stay accountable, not for yourself but for the people around you, for your teammates, for them. Like I would say that program was so influential in my life, um, that it helped me get through a lot of things, and I was always willing to talk to them about life because I knew that I was going to get an honest response from them. I wasn't going to get a bullshit answer like I would from someone that just like someone that just kind of knows you and just wants to encourage you. Like they would give me honest feedback, and I always appreciated that for them. And then with my choir teacher, I learned how to embrace more parts of me, how to be okay with you know being being different, and how to have fun, how to love, and how to share love with others. He I talked with him a lot during um, my life problems as well, and he helped me and my family out through a lot of things. Um, and I thank him and his family for a lot of the help that they gave me and a lot of the insight that they offered me. And it wasn't just me; like he would do this for all his students, right? But I always felt that strong bond with him. Um, so yeah, I would put them all on the same level as Moy for me, to where they've been that influential in my life, and I know that they would all um, be able to help me in that same kind of honest and um, constructive way. So like I was very fortunate. I was very spoiled, kind of growing up because I did have these people in my life. Um, but yeah,
Oh, my experience was way different, but where do you think that all went wrong then? You know, because to me, as
sounds
an
like I have it all
outsider
set.
looking in, dude, it almost makes me want to go back in time to our sophomore year and just me smack you across the face. This was your history, man. I should have clapped them cheeks, son.
Yeah, I don't
No,
know.
but like where,
I got lost. I
yeah.
got lost in college. I kind of lost that way because I didn't have like back to what I said earlier. It's just I just once I was removed from that supportive of a system, I I cracked.
Oh, dude. Your experience is so much different than mine. Because so you know what? I'm gonna take back what I said where I didn't think I had mentors. I did have them. They just came in different ways. Second grade, I had I had a teacher. Her name
Professor,
was
yeah.
yeah, sorry. I've been in school for way too long. Her name was Mrs. Plager, and she was my second grade teacher. Second grade, dude. She was G, man, and she would help me, and she helped me channel my inner poetry, and she helped me get one of my poems published about tulips, which I thought was always super
Heck
dope.
yeah.
But then she left. That was the last year she taught.
Mhm.
Third grade, Mrs. Whistler. She was cool. It was all right, but I was going through a lot of weird changes at that time.
Mhm.
So very strange. That's when I really started lying.
Ooh.
Very, very interesting experience. I hated that my dad was just a construction worker when all the other kids had like dentists or fathers and other
Mhm.
worthy jobs, right? And
Yep.
so
I
it
feel
fucked
that.
with me a lot when it was like all these kids would come in as their parents.
Yeah.
Like they'd come dressed up as their parents, or they'd bring their parents to school.
Mhm.
My parents never did that, right?
Mhm. That's another
Um,
conversation that I want to have with you at some point because I definitely relate to that.
uh, yeah, I mean, I know about that, bro. I know about that. And then fourth grade, Mrs. Brackey, dude, she was fucking awesome, man. Like we grew chicks in that class. Like we had fun, and she was very close to a mentor that I could have. She left that year. Fifth grade, Mrs. Pugh. She was an awful teacher, man. I hated her so much, but like it was what it was. Got through it, made it to sixth grade. Nothing good came out of that year for me. Sixth grade, Miss Steinberger. That's when I discovered my passion for reading.
Mhm.
But guess what? She left that year too.
Damn, bro.
And it was interesting because I gave her I gave her like that. She was the only teacher where I took her name, right? I never done anything for any of my teachers, man. I took her name. Her name was Miss Strattenberger, right? It's a long ass name, and I wrote an adjective for each one of those words about how awesome she was to me. Basically, like I wrote that as a note, and that was the only time I'd ever. Oh, it's making me emotional. This I remember giving that to her because it meant so much to me, and like
Mhm.
how much she helped me through all these things. And I know I wasn't perfect and stuff, but she encouraged my ability to read because my parents weren't doing that.
Mhm.
Um, at home, that wasn't happening. And anyways, she left that year, so made it to seventh grade. And once you make it to seventh grade, right, you don't have like a home ec teacher, you know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
And so got all sorts of teachers, had one for each different class. Never really felt close to any of them, right?
Mhm.
And that kind of propelled its way through. And so it's so interesting, man, because like you had people that followed you throughout your life, and those people that I felt that were close enough to me that could have done that for me, they all left.
Yeah. Well.
Shit. And as we were talking this, I was like, oh my God. I was like, damn, bro, what happened? You know what I mean? Because then when the first year I did football was eighth grade, and it
Mhm.
was Coach Carlson. He was a boss, dude. Like when I first joined his PE class, I ran my 1 minute my 1 mile in about like 9 minutes and 45 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
But because he was so supportive, dude, and he was such a good dude, man, and he seemed military too, because he had like a really thick mustache. He was buff. He was all about it, right? And he'd always had these maxims that he'd say.
Mm-hmm.
I finished my that eighth grade year, and I ran a 6:55, I think, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I was fat as shit. I was fat, dude. I was fat, and I went into his class, and I appreciated how much work he gave to, like, he put into me specifically, which was such a strange feeling that somebody would, ask me like, "How are you doing? Like, what's up? Like, oh, it's your birthday. Happy birthday!" Like doing all these things. Like, hey, I know you got a 9 something, but I know you can do better.
Mm-hmm.
And he would encourage me, and he saw that I had that fire inside of me, right? And he
Mm-hmm.
nurtured it. You know what I mean? He nurtured it in a different way that nobody else really did. Everybody else would tell me like, "Oh yeah, you're smart. Oh yeah, you're good at this. Oh yeah, you're good at that." But
Mm-hmm.
then that was that. You know what I mean? They just give me some blanket encouragement and just expect me to move on and have that fire behind me. Have that fire underneath me that would keep
Mm-hmm.
me motivated, right? But it wasn't there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It wasn't there. And guess what? He left. He left. He left that year. He left right afterwards, right?
Yeah.
Um, and and then like all my coaches, like the coach I had for football, he was there from freshman and sophomore year, but because we had such a bad, like shitty, like losing season, like it was 1-7 and then 0-8 was the second year.
The
So he
fired
got fired. Yeah, they chased his ass out of there.
him.
New guy came in. He was pretty cool. He didn't take as much shit, which I liked about him. But like he was a really big dude, right?
Mm.
Coach Fuller, right? He was really cool, man. But he wasn't really my coach. You know what I mean? Because I was a lineman, so I had different people, and so we had a different person junior year, and then senior year we had the guy who's the head coach now, and he was cool. He was cool, but I only had 1 year with him, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Then you left.
yeah, and then I left, right? And so it's interesting, dude, because I never looked at it that way, dude. I never looked at it that way, where I didn't that nurturing, that like protective, like, come here, my child.
Mm-hmm.
I shall nurture you. I shall put you under my wing, and give you a trajectory, give you a path.
Mm-hmm.
I went home and saw a path I didn't like, dude. I went to school, I saw multiple paths that I didn't like either. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And nothing felt right. So in a way, I was like that ping pong game. That pinball game that you used to play on the computer. That was like
Yep.
the only game people would have,
Mm-hmm.
and like you just bounce around from different places. That's how it felt, man. I felt like I was getting tossed around from different things. And I remember the only place I ever felt like I was truly at home was when I joined SLB.
Mm.
That was the first place where I truly felt like I was around people that genuinely gave a damn about me, and
Mm-hmm.
were willing to put the time in to nurture me for who I am and who I
Mm-hmm.
could be. You know what I mean? It was the first group of people that really showed me that, because ROTC wasn't like that for me.
Yeah.
Like classes weren't like that for me.
Mm-hmm.
High school definitely wasn't like that for me. My home life wasn't like that for me, right? But dude, wow. It's and how do we make it to the same place, dude?
It's a good question because it's funny you say SLB because I mean, as much as I love everybody and as much as I learned from my experience of being, you know, and being a brother of SLB, I would say it was kind of the start of my downfall. It exposed me to so much more, and I think too much too soon, and I cracked, and that led
Yeah,
to a string of a couple years there where things were pretty bad. Um,
you weren't you
but
weren't
at the
ready
same
for something
time,
like that, huh?
it offered me the people like you who kind of stuck with me and offered me a support system. Um, but it was always also weird because you probably would have been the same way. Just kind of grew up hanging out with white people because there's not a lot of Hispanics or whatever. Um, I don't know. I guess that's kind of me speaking out of my ass for you, but um, at least for me, like I was grew up mainly hanging out with white people, right? And
Yeah, same.
and then coming to college and just always being around people that look like me, while it was nice because it offered me a new perspective, I also think I wasn't ready for it. Because I think I tried to live up to that too much. And I think if when you talk about what made me, realize what's holding me back and what kind of sparked that whole thing in me, I would say that. And that's hard for me to admit because I have a lot of great memories. I have a lot of really positive emotions associated to that. But I'd also be lying to myself if I said I wasn't, if that it started down the domino fall in a positive way, but it also started the other one in a negative way. And it's just at times it got ahead.
To piggy off that, I was the only pre-med student there. I was the only one in that group, right? Everybody else was history, global studies.
Bunch of non-real majors over here.
Yeah, bunch of softies, right? And I did all those things, man. I was in the shit. I was in the trenches, metaphorically, right? In the trenches of that handle of Crown Apple every weekend. Yeah. And I'm not gonna say that was my downfall, and it may have held me back, but that was because of me. That wasn't because of them. It was.
No, I agree with you. Like, I made the choice. Like, I'm not putting that on them. I'm saying like I willingly made the choice, right?
And I felt like I needed it. I needed it because in a way, how else would I ever be capable of knowing how badly I can fall if I didn't fall myself? I want to build my life up around helping people that went through the exact same shit that I went through, because there's a lot of people out there, man.
A lot of people have it a lot worse than we do.
Exactly, dude. Exactly. Like my brother.
Mm-hmm.
Like he's still in that shit, dude. He's 40.
Mm-hmm.
He's 40 plus something, right? And I think he's in jail right now because he wanted to play around. Yeah. He wanted to continue being that little kid with no responsibilities, right? Mm-hmm. And I think life has a way of beating you down until you begin to see the lessons, Mm-hmm. And I needed to see that for myself because I wasn't going to take anybody else's advice. Yeah. I don't know about you, man, but not having those role models and not having those people in my life, those successful people, man, that helped nurture that fire in me. I had to figure out ways that I could do it for myself, right? I had to see how I can stoke the fire. Yeah. And then I started seeing that, this is actually kind of fun. Like some of these things that people were saying don't do. Like I'm on top of the world, dude. I'm invincible, dude. This is gonna stop me, right? Mm-hmm. And I think we both know where my history goes,
where
right?
That ended up, yep.
Yeah. But I needed to see that for myself. I needed to experience it, man. Because it's like those it was like all those people that ever try to help me. Mm-hmm. Or try to tell me that I'm okay when I'm not okay because they don't know what I've been through. They don't know my history. They don't know what it's like to be deep down in the shit, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, like your parents don't support you, but neither does your school, your teachers. that
Mm-hmm.
truly support you. You know what I mean? Truly know you for who you are and what you do, and what are the things that make you happy, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like they take the time and they see your test score and they're like, oh, hey, you're good at math. Awesome, man. You're so smart. Good
Mm-hmm.
job.
That's it.
And they don't see the fact that you did that homework 10 minutes this morning because you didn't want to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And that your parents will look condescendingly down at you if you don't get it because they sacrifice so much for you to get to where you are. And you don't want to like shit on that sacrifice, you know?
Yep.
But at the same time, you know that this isn't the best that you can do, right? But
Mm-hmm.
they're okay with accepting mediocrity as long as it gets the score right. As
Yeah.
long as it makes them look like they're doing their job.
Mm-hmm.
Why try doing more,
Yeah. Why go
right?
further?
Why try to build people? You know what I mean?
And like
So
I
yeah, man.
don't.
I mean, I'm not. Sorry. What's
No.
up?
Go
Yeah,
ahead.
I'll let you.
I'll
I'll
let
let
you
you.
finish your statement.
Nah, that's probably a good place to be done. Otherwise, I'm gonna start monologuing.
um. Like where I'm at today, I don't regret anything. Were there better choices that I could have made? In theory, sure. But like you said, it's all part of the story, right? It, it all helped build who I am right now. And if I would have made different choices or done different things, I don't think I'd be in as good of a place as I am right now. And I believe that. Um, and I always kind of talk about it with Moy, going back to him, how it's like it's all it's all part of the story, right? Like there's no good book, there's no good movie, there's no good anything that ever had something go right the entire time and that's it. Right?
I would have paid to see that shit.
Yeah, exactly. Nobody would want to do that, right? It's a lot of times when something bad happens in my life or I put it in that perspective, it's like it's all part of my story, right? It's all just a chapter. Like it's all about what happens after type of thing.
Yeah.
So I don't regret anything. I mean, it's all experience. You win some, you learn some, you know. But
Yeah. I mean, I look back much the same way, and oh man, I wish I could have been in a better place to have tried to done more
mm-hmm,
and have been the example. Because I did see a lot of improvement in the guys. I did
mm-hmm,
challenge them in ways that made them, because I remember they would give me that BS because a lot of them were engineers. They'd be like, "Yo, 2.7 is good in engineering school, bro," and I'd be like, "Get the fuck out of here, man. That's bullshit. I know you're capable of doing more, man. I know you're capable of doing great. You're just selling yourself short." And then they'd be like, "Bro, what if only getting a 3.0 is the best that they can do, right? Why shit on them?" And I'm like, "No, man, it's not the best that you can do, man. I know you guys can do better. It's like,
mm-hmm,
unless you guys are spending 24 hours, well, okay, I'm not gonna say 24 hours. Unless you're spending 16 hours because you should be sleeping for at least 8, 7. You know what I mean?
mm-hmm.
Maybe you can get away with 6, just not every day. I guess it depends on person, right?
Yeah.
But
But
and then I
generally,
started, yeah. But generally, be smart about it, right?
yeah.
And then I started seeing what some of them were capable of doing, like
Mm-hmm.
Isaac. Oh, the motherfucker's smart
Yeah,
when he
dude.
puts the work in.
Mm-hmm.
BJ, when he puts the work in, oh, he's capable of doing great things. Chavez, same thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Story after story after story, man. They were all like, dude, this semester I'm on top of my shit, bro. And it was funny because like they would say that to me and I wouldn't be on top of my shit, right? I'd be
Yeah.
like, yikes, yikes. But it made me happy. It made me happy for them that I was able to get to that part of them. And that's one of the
Mm-hmm.
things that I think really touched me about what Batelli said about me. He's like, you learn from your mistakes, and at the same time, you help people see something that they don't always see.
Yeah.
And the only thing that, that I regret is not being able to be that example more,
Mm-hmm.
because, but at the same time, I'm also happy that I did the things that I did. Oh, okay, I'm not happy. I accept the things that I did throughout my life because they brought me to the place that I am now. And I may not be perfect, right?
Mm-hmm.
I like to think I'm in a better place. And
Yeah.
not, it comes full circle, dude. Um, I'm at a place where, I've come to accept the fact that, I don't love myself 100%.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't, this is what feels like the final mound,
Mm-hmm.
the last climb, maybe not the last climb, but a very important climb in the whole mountain of things that I need to climb,
It's the next peak.
because yeah, it's the next peak, and it's something that I need to do. I need to
Mm-hmm.
do because it is holding me back. I am capable of great things, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm capable of being the person that I want to be, only if I'm ready to make this journey. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, dude, I don't know.
Yeah, no, I definitely feel that, and I think we're at the point in this conversation where I think we got a good hold on what's holding us back, right? It's basically ourselves and our inability to allow ourselves to be great, basically.
Yeah.
And and I think we're starting to get to that point where we're gonna start talking about how to embrace ourselves, Like that's that next step, right? Like what do you do after figuring that out, right? What can we do to embrace ourselves? And that's for the next part. So
Yeah.
this is as good as of a place as any to kind of end it. Um, I think we hit on a lot of things, and I think we kind of
Yeah.
um, diverged quite a bit, but I think it all kind of encompasses all the same feelings of just how do we get ourselves out of the way? How do we allow ourselves to love ourselves basically and help help that carry us forward?
I do have one last question before you finish.
Yeah, what's up?
Why do you think you never viewed anything outside of you as something that was holding you back?
Because I think that's all bullshit. I think
Yeah.
um well, okay.
Well,
What do you mean by like outside things? I guess in
you're
my head,
brown.
what? I'm brown, is that what you
You're
said?
brown.
Yeah, see
Yeah, you're
see
brown.
yeah, like to me that's all bullshit because that's things I can't control. Like I always and it goes back to middle school and high school, that whole focus on what you can control and anything outside of that doesn't matter because
No.
there's no reason to worry about it because you can't do anything about it. So I think
Yeah.
that's why I always reflect on my own things because I can control myself, right? I can control how I deal with my emotions, how much effort I put into things, how I approach situations, my mindset. That's all me, right? Everything outside of that, if I face prejudice because I'm brown, from where I come from my background, I don't. I honestly, I just don't care. Like to me, that's an excuse, right? Because there's plenty of people that have had it far worse than me that have made it to be super successful, right? In whatever that definition is for them, that I know that if I can control myself, everything else will take care of itself, right? The right things will happen, and if there's bumps in the road, cool. That's another chance to get better. That's another chance for me to kind of focus on things or whatever. But as far as like outside things, I think that's the main thing. Like I focus on what I can control, and that, yeah,
Like Jocko says, right?
exactly.
Good.
Get better.
Good. Get after it. No excuse. Yeah. No. I just wanted to have you answer that question because just just for all, you know what I mean. I don't know. I agree with you. I think you're absolutely right. One, I mean, the biggest obstacle that I've ever faced is not anybody else. It's
Myself.
yeah, dude. It's just in here, man.
Man in the
I've
mirror.
been my own worst enemy, man. You know what I mean? I've been my own worst enemy, and I'm still facing it. And obviously, in 23 years, I still haven't fucking figured it out. That's why I'm here. You know,
23
having this
rounds
conversation.
later.
Yeah, dude. 23 rounds later, it's still going. It's still going, dude. It's an everyday process, right?
Mm-hmm. And like,
But all right, bro.
And I think that's a unique type of mindset, especially in today's age, right? And that's a whole conversation we could have at another point, because we can go on tangents about that. But
Yeah.
because I think if you ask someone what's holding you back, and I'm generalizing here, obviously it's not everybody, but I think for the most part, people would be like, "Oh, I don't make enough money," or like, "Oh, my boss doesn't like me," or like, "Oh, my teacher doesn't like me," or "Oh, my schoolwork is too hard," or stuff like that. That you know, like I feel like a lot of people. Again, I'm generalizing. I'm sorry about that, but it's just from the interactions that I have with most people. Go right away to blame something outside of themselves for the reason they're not successful, right? I will never blame anything else. Like if I'm not successful academically, I know that shit's because I'm lazy. Like that's all me. Like it's not because my teacher gave me a bad grade because she doesn't like me or whatever. No. I know that I put myself in that position. There's no reason to hold anybody else accountable other than myself for that. And I think not a lot of people steer that way.
Yeah.
But I digress. That
No.
again, like I said, that's for another conversation.
Yeah. Could be that whole idea about identity.
Yeah.
Full circle. All right.
All right.
I think we're good to go. Thank you. Thank you to everybody who watches this. Thank you, Irvin. I appreciate the conversation. Made me think about things I've never thought about before in new ways. And it always surprises me how different, yet how similar our lives are. So thank you for sharing this moment with me, man. I appreciate it.
No, I mean, same goes to you. And you know that, tell you that all the time. And again, we appreciate you all for how many ever of you watch these, however long you watch it for. I hope you're able to take something away from it. And, like the title says, thought-provoking conversations. Hopefully it sparks a thought in your mind, makes you think of something you haven't thought of before. Hit that subscribe button if you like what you heard. Hit that like button if you liked it. Share it with whoever you think, might want to hear this message or might want to hear this conversation as well. Listening to other people, I don't know, it helps me kind of work through things. So if that helps you and you think it's going to help someone else too, then go ahead and share that with them. But yeah, that's all I got. We're good? All right. Well, we'll see you all next week with part 2 of this when we talk about how to embrace yourself. So looking forward to that one.
Oh boy.
All right. See you, everyone.